How's it going, folks? My name's Jason, and this week I am making pizza, and it's gonna take a couple days, a few days, 3 days. So first things first, we're gonna start with the cheese. We're gonna make our own mozzarella, and then we're gonna use the whey to make the pizza dough. So it's gonna be great. So we're starting out with just about a gallon. I'll use some of this for pancakes. So this is organic whole milk. So to that, I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid that have been dissolved in a 1/2 cup of cool water. Gonna give that a little stir. Ooh. And just that little bit of citric acid already started it curdling a little bit. So the recipe I'm using is from Home Cheese Making by Ricky Carroll. Love this book. This is a 30-minute mozzarella. Just use I'm using an induction hob. You can use regular stovetop, and then you're gonna use the microwave. Do this, so we're just heating it up to 90 degrees. So I'm going up to about 90 degrees, which is right there. Now, I'm gonna add some liquid rennet. This is a 1/4 teaspoon of liquid rennet that I added to a 1/4 cup of water. So I'm just adding that in there. We're gonna take this up to 100 degrees. I'm using animal rennet. If you want to use vegetable rennet, that's out there too. So I'm going for 100 degrees to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So hopefully you can start to see this start to come together as we get up the temp. And then almost there. All right, we just passed 100, so I'm going to turn off the heat. So you can see we got cheese curds pulling away already. I'm going to let this sit for about 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so our cheese has been sitting for a bit. I'm going to scoop out the curds into a microwave safe bowl. Then we're going to try to get as much of the way out as possible. Part of the issue that we'll run into when we're making the pizza in a couple days is that mozzarella can be wet, and that'll make our pizza dough soggy, and we don't want that. So we're going to get as much way out of this as possible, and then while the dough is fermenting over these next 3 days, we're going to dry out the mozzarella in the fridge. Okay, so we got most of our curds out. Drain as much of the way out as possible. I'm gonna throw this in the microwave for 1 minute. So be careful with it at this point. It's gonna be pretty hot. So we're trying to heat this up so these curds will come together. You can use your hands to do this, but again, this can get pretty hot. It needs to get up to like 145 degrees. All right, I'm gonna put it back in for 35 seconds. And it's starting to get more elastic and releasing more water. Look at that. That is looking good. So we're gonna do one more. One more heating in the microwave, 35 seconds. Can we do a cheese bowl? Cheese ball! So this helps us just make sure it's evenly heated. Helps it bind together through some sort of science or magic, I'm guessing. These gloves are barely working, so yeah, you gotta make sure that you're wearing gloves or using like a spoon or something like this. On something like this. That is looking beautiful. See how much we ended up with here. So just shy of 1 pound, 421 grams. That's not bad for 1 pound of mozzarella is pretty spendy at the store, and this gallon of milk was $5 basically, $4.99. Really good. It's a place called Lulabelle's here in Oregon, Lulabelle's Creamery. It's pasteurized. You want to make sure when you're buying milk, make sure that it's not ultra pasteurized or UHT. That's ultra high temperature processing. Gonna save the rest of that. I'm gonna cover this up with some cheesecloth. And then this will go in the fridge until we're ready to use it. And it's gonna dry out, basically air dry in the fridge. And hopefully get rid of some of that moisture so it won't make the pizza dough soggy when we go to cook it in 2 days' time. Okay, and the recipe that I'm using for the pizza dough is from bakingsteel.com. I've got a baking steel for my oven, and they've got a cool 3-day pizza recipe on there. I got the idea for using whey, cheese whey from Home Cheese Making by Ricky Carroll. There's a pizza recipe in there. Yeah, drying out the mozzarella comes from Modernist Bread. So yeah, let's get started on the pizza dough now that we got our whey. Okay, so I'm using this recipe from bakingsteel.com. It's a 3-day pizza dough, and I'm doing it a little bit differently because they use just bread flour or AP flour, all-purpose. And I'm going to be grinding my own and then using a starter to get it going. So I'm going to be measuring out 500 grams. I'm just using hard red wheat because that's what I've got laying around. I've got white wheat somewhere around here too, which would probably work pretty well. Won't be using that today though. So today it's the hard red. We're just gonna get it grinding. It barely fits. I just like to use these because less flour dust goes everywhere. So this is a 2-liter Cambro that I use, 2 quarts. Adding in 2% of the weight of the flour in salt. That's 10 grams. And this is a 70% hydration recipe, so that's going to be 350 grams of whey. Now, since I have a chamber sealer, I can seal up the rest of this once it's cooled down and then freeze it, and then I'll be able to use this to make pizza dough or just my regular bread in the future. And it's gonna add extra flavor to it and just be delicious. All right, now with the starter, so the baking steel recipe calls for 1 gram active dry yeast. This is an active starter, or relatively active starter. So I'm just gonna go with about 10 grams. Because we want this to be basically countertop 12 to 24 hour ferment. And then we're gonna transfer it to the fridge for another day or two to let it slow ferment. And the stone mill heats up the flour a little bit, but still keeps it within a healthy temperature range for the yeast. And the whey was already warm, so this is gonna be a nice environment for the yeast to get growing overnight. Nice. So the only adjustment I'm doing to this recipe is I'm not using the active dry yeast. I'm using a starter that's from the same kind of wheat, because I found that that's freshly ground wheat, the commercial yeast doesn't do a good job of fermenting it. Whereas the actual yeast that's on the wheat itself is already adapted to like it. So, and again, one reason why I really love freshly milled flour, there's hardly any mess that sticks to you most of the time. Alrighty. So that's where we're at tonight. We're gonna check back in on this tomorrow and we'll see where we're at. So I will see you in just a little bit. Right, it's the next day. It's about 22 hours later. This has been going, and check it out. It's like double in size, looks beautiful. I'm just gonna give it some few folds. And then I'm gonna put it back into, or put it into the fridge so it can do a slow ferment. And then tomorrow we can make pizza. Welcome back. It's been a few days and we've had time for our dough to ferment, and I've divided it into 4 pieces. I'm gonna roll this one out. A little flour. And yeah, I'm gonna use a rolling pin. All right. Gonna fold this over, get a little, that part's pretty wet there. So I'm just making a nice small personal pizza. Give this a little olive oil. So we got our mozzarella, which is dried for a couple days. Some sliced cherry tomatoes. Make sure we can move that around a little bit. Got it ready to go in the oven. Already got my oven preheated, preheated it to 500 degrees, and then on the bake setting, and then I turned on the broiler, and I'm gonna shove it in right now. So that's in. That's in, and we're gonna cook it for 7 minutes. Our timer's gone off, so let's get the pizza out of the oven. And just gonna add some basil over the top. There we got it. 3-day pizza. Looks pretty rustic, but it's gonna be delicious. Ooh, that is hot. So I'm definitely gonna burn my mouth on that if I bite into it now. So I'm gonna let that cool down a bit, and I will see you next time.